This is IAQ Radio, Indoor Air Quality Radio, the voice of the indoor air quality industry, with your host, Radio Joe Hughes, and the Z-Man, Cliff Zlotnick. And now, Radio Joe Hughes.
Good day and welcome to IAQ Radio. This week is episode number 501, and we welcome back Nate Adams. Nate the House Whisperer, that is, Adams, for part two of an interview we did with him probably about a month back now. We're going to talk about the home comfort book, and we went through the basics the last time. This time we're going to focus more on HVAC systems. Before we do, we want to make sure we thank our sponsors.
IAQ Radio marquee sponsors are John Don Products, where restoration and abatement contractors shop. Visit them at jondon.com. That's JONDON.com. Healthy Indoor Magazine, a free online digital magazine for industry professionals and consumers. Subscriptions are available at healthyindoors.com. Particles Plus, engineers and manufacturers feature rich particle counters, air quality monitoring, instrumentation, and vacuum pump technology. ParticlesPlus.com. Count on us. And now you can win a cool prize. It's time for the IAQ Radio trivia question. Be the first to correctly answer. Simply email your answer to czlotnick@cs.com. Or if listening live, just text your answer from your computer.
Danny Greenblatt, Envirotech Air up in Boston, Massachusetts area, got the correct answer to our question from last week, and that was identifying 2 squared times 5 to the third as the prime factorization of the number 500 for our 500th episode. The IAQ Radio question for today has been sponsored by Ideas, the solution chemistry company, creating unique solutions for odor removal, surface cleaning, and decontamination problems. The question is, what were silver bullets originally used for? All right, so we're going to get back to our interview we did with Nate last month, I guess it was, Nate. Nate is the owner of Energy Smart. They started out as an insulation contractor for existing homes. They've evolved into doing comprehensive home performance retrofits. The projects are anywhere between a simple attic insulation job and a deep energy retrofit. The projects are sweeping in scope. He has a thorough planning process that we'll go through here as we review what we talked about on the last show. And also, Nate's a blogger, and he's an author. He's got the home comfort book. We sent out a link on our show announcement. I really encourage people to get a copy of the book. It's really excellent stuff. Nate, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Joe. It's good to be back.
Good to have you here. All right, let's put up that PowerPoint we have you on. We're going to do a quick review here. Let's first show the copy of the book, the home comfort book. That's a nice graphic. Well, we don't have time to go into where you got that graphic from, Nate, because I know we got a lot to cover. Go to the next one, if you would, John. All right, so the book starts with Home Comfort 101. We talked a little bit about that, and then it goes into, it's actually it's a lengthy chapter. It's about 70 pages, and there's quite a bit of good information in there, including a lot of the background information we discussed on the last show. This week, we're going to go into HVAC 101 and 102, and hopefully we'll get another show where we talk more about insulation types. Let's go to the next one here. All right. This is Nate, why do you throw this graphic in here? I think this is a good way to go over some of the things we talked about on the last show.
Yep. So this is a graphic. I borrowed it from another cartoonist, but then had it adjusted to kind of fit. And basically, when it comes to looking for solutions, most people are looking for a simple solution. The problem is it tends to be wrong. And so you end up burning time and money trying that path. The better solution to complex problems, like what home performance and home comfort problems usually are, is to take the complex but correct path, which is kind of slow plotting, do your reading, do your homework, and then execute, so you don't have to redo anything.
Okay, next. So here's your 4 tenets. You want homes to be, you want comfort, health, durability, and efficiency. Anything you'd like to add on this?
Well, those are the buckets that most problems that we solve and that clients come to us with fall into. If you have a room that is any more than 2 to 3 degrees different from the rest of the house, that's a problem. If you've got a kid with asthma or you have indoor allergies, that's a health problem. If you have ice dams or water in the basement, that's a durability problem because water kills buildings. So if you have a problem, the odds are they fall into those buckets. That's the idea.
All right, next. And control. We want to control air, heat, and moisture flow. That's the key to everything, is controlling these things, and I think that's pretty well said right here. Nate, anything you'd like to add?
There's two sides to it. So you need to control air, heat, and moisture flow in and out of the building. So that's where air sealing and insulation comes in, which we'll touch on. So that has to be done first. But once the house is reasonably tight, like say a boat that will actually float without sinking, then you have to deal with the air, heat, and moisture inside the house. And that's the job of the HVAC, or the heating, ventilation, and cooling system.
Another example is a car. And I like what we're going to talk about, HVAC today, heating, ventilation, air conditioning. You use a car's HVAC system as a great illustration of what you'd like to see in homes. And I think, cars are typically pretty tight, because they have good gasketing and sealing, and they have to be aerodynamic. So I think that's a great example that you use in the book. Let's go to the next one. All right, the 5 priorities. I don't think we can emphasize enough the first 3, right? They're all air seal.
Yes, they are. And then you insulate, and then it's the right HVAC.
Why, I understand air seal, number 1. Why did you choose insulation over HVAC as your next step?
Typically, air sealing and insulation go together. So if you're going to pull insulation out of an attic so you can air seal it, you're not going to leave the attic empty. Or if you're using spray foam, you get insulation and air sealing simultaneously. So that they just generally go together. But it depends on the house. So you may just spend time tightening and not adjust insulation levels. That's possible.
Well, there are times when adjusting the insulation levels are more difficult. Like I live in a log home here, and it's difficult in my walls anyway. Now my roof, my ceiling, I can do more there. But I think that's interesting that insulation, and we'll talk more about insulation as we go along. Let's go to the next one. All right, now here you go. This is we talked about this, your blower door. Most people are familiar with it. You're aiming for 1-to-1 or better. You want to add on to that?
Sure. Well, the 1-to-1 ratio is the leakage. So it's the number on the blower door, which is in cubic feet per minute at 50 pascals, which is geeky, but you don't really need to know, compared to the square footage of the house. So typically, if you can get a house close to a 1-to-1 ratio, so if you have a 2,000 square foot house that has a 2,000 blower door, that house is likely to be controllable. It's not necessarily good. That's a B-, C+, something like that. But it's a really good start for getting the house under control.
Let me ask you this, Nate. I've got a friend living down in Virginia. He listens to the show regular, Vic Cafaro. And, I can imagine what Vic would ask. First question. Well, first question you probably get from a lot of people when you say you want to have a blower door done. What should I expect to pay for this blower door testing?
So that's a good question, and the answer, as to all building science questions, is it depends. You likely have a utility program where you can get a blower door test done pretty inexpensively, oftentimes like $25 to $100. But you may use it for the blower door number, but that's not likely to help you solve the problem, because they're typically going to give you a big laundry list of stuff to do with no pricing and little prioritization. And it won't be aimed at solving problems that you care about. So typically you want to start with an independent energy auditor, or maybe an HVAC company that does this sort of thing, and start working through the logical process of solving the problems, rather than just basically paying for an x-ray but not having any idea what to do with the x-ray results. Okay. And that you're looking at like $200 to $300 usually.
Okay. That's what I'm wondering, because I can imagine some people would be interested just in knowing, hey, what's my blower door number? They see this 1-to-1's good, 2-to-1's not so good. I'd like to see how I'm doing here. For $200 or $300, I think we could do that. If it was more like $500, $600, $700, then people start to have second thoughts. All right, let's go to the next one. Here, I just like this because I think we have to set up the discussion on HVAC by talking a little bit about heat transfer. And I like your graphic you had in the book here. I think it does a great job. You want to add anything to that?
Well, sure. So I kind of borrowed this. I'm trying to remember the author's name. Henry, I think it was. I remember him. He was told that he measures energy with a spoon, but he had a great book, and he had a couple of illustrations on how heat transfer worked. And I'm like, you know what? I think we could do this all with a coffee mug. So there's 3 different ways that a coffee mug can be used. So there's 3 different heat transfer mechanisms. There's conduction, which is through solids. So if you put your hand on the coffee cup, the heat from the coffee transfers through the coffee cup and into your hand. So that's through solids. Convection is heat transfer through fluids, which can be air or water. So if you put your hand on top of the coffee cup, you'll feel the steam heat convecting into your hand. And then the most important one when it comes to human comfort is radiation. That's about 60% of human comfort, which we're going to spend a lot of time on moving forward. And so if you have a hot coffee cup and you hold your hand a half an inch or an inch away, you'll feel the heat from that cup jumping through the air into your hand. And that is radiation. So that's 60% of human comfort, and we'll be digging into that next.
Absolutely. Next. Here we go. Mean radiant temperature. I don't remember, Nate, we didn't spend much time on this with the first show, did we? We talked
this
a little.
Wasn't even in it. I don't think we even made it to this. There's a lot of other concepts to
for the IAQ folks too. This is a very important concept. You know, the mean radiant temperature, because comfort issues are oftentimes an indoor air quality complaint that we get. Go ahead, Nate. Tell listeners a little bit about this graphic.
So the easy way to think about this is, imagine you just came home from work. It's 5:30 in the afternoon. It's the middle of the summer. The sun's been beating on your house all day, and it doesn't have a lot of insulation. So the ceiling above you is very warm because the attic is 130, 140 degrees. The wall has been warmed up by the sun, and the heat from that wall is radiating through into the space. So even if the air conditioner has been running and the house is cool, so say it's 70 degrees, but because it's oversized, it's not running much and it's not doing much dehumidification, the humidity levels are high. So you're sweating because humidity is high, and you are feeling uncomfortable because the ceiling and walls are radiating heat at you. So you find yourself very uncomfortable. So mean radiant temperature is the concept of the average surface temperature around us. And we don't realize it, but our bodies are really, really good at measuring this. We have 165,000 temperature sensors in our skin. And so if you note, like, well, right now, the back of my foot is a little bit cold, my right foot, not my left. So if you start thinking about it, you can figure out what parts of you are warm or cold. Those are the temperature sensors. So if we can make those happy by making the surfaces around us as close to the same temperature as possible, and in a temperature range that's good for human comfort, we can have a happy occupant. But that takes insulation and air sealing on one side and HVAC on the other.
You know, this is a topic that Robert Bean speaks about all the time. He's the guru on that. And by the way, we did have Robert on his show years ago. We're going to have to get him back. I'll maybe in the blog I can put a link to that show. But he's very big on this whole idea of mean radiant temperature and comfort in buildings. But let's go to the next slide here. All right, so here we go now. What we've done is you've made some changes to try and help with the mean radiant temperature. Maybe you could tell listeners a little bit about what you've done here and how it's helped.
Sure. So now this building has been air sealed and insulated. So the walls are insulated, and then the heat from the walls is not transferring through as quickly. The attic has been air sealed and insulated, so the heat's not transferring there. So the ceiling and the wall is no longer very warm. And then because you have the right sized HVAC, it's running a lot. So you want it to run at low levels. Think highway miles. You don't want on, off, on, off, on, off. You want it to run at low levels all the time. And if that's happening, it's constantly washing cool air across the surfaces of the house. which keep them at a much more similar temperature. What we find is after we do these projects, we have clients that used to have thermostat set points in the summer in the 68 to 70 range, maybe 72, and very consistently everyone says they increase their thermostat set point. So they go 74 is kind of the typical low, and we've got a couple clients that are comfortable at 80. And that's because they have, number one, the right equipment, number two, the air-sealed and insulated house. And because that right equipment is dehumidifying a lot, you can be comfortable at higher temperatures as long as it's not humid.
And I think later, or maybe now, we're going to talk about those swing seasons when your air conditioning may not be running very much. And as a result, you're not getting the dehumidification. And do you want to talk about that now, or should we save that for a later point?
Let's dig in a few minutes.
All right, let's do that. 5 priorities we talked about. Air seal. Oh, here we go. Let's go to the next one. Okay, and once you have air sealed and insulated, suddenly the new HVAC system you were looking at is very likely to be too large. You say in the book that most HVAC systems are too large. I believe that's a quote from the book or something similar to that.
Close enough.
I think a lot of people don't necessarily wouldn't immediately agree. You know, they would think, how can that be? And how often would you say HVAC systems are oversized in the typical home that you've looked at least?
99% or more.
Almost always.
Yeah.
Are there any, I know you come from, you follow the home performance industry and you're very familiar with the research they've done. Is there any research on that? Is there something in the literature that shows that absolutely, you know, this percent of homes are oversized when it comes to HVAC?
I don't know that there is. Perhaps somebody in chat can chime in if there's something that someone knows about. The curse is to understand if it is oversized or undersized. You have to do a load calculation, and load calculations typically are heavy. So like a manual J heating load calculation, which we'll touch on in a minute, oftentimes you can discount that by 50% in a house that's somewhat airtight and have it still heat the house. So even if the equipment is sized to the industry standard calculation, which is a manual J, it's still too big, which is why it's so big. So the heating calculation for manual J literally has 3 fudge factors. There's a fudge factor on the fudge factor and then a fudge factor on top of that just in case. And it's because they don't want to get a callback on a day that goes to 5 below or below design temperature because the house isn't heating. But what they end up doing is sacrificing comfort in that house literally 99% of the year, which we'll get into more later.
So because of the peaks. All right, let's go to the next one here, John. Oop. There we go. But don't be fooled. You have a terrible furnace. Tell us a little more.
This is the cover from HVAC 101. This is just meant to shake people and make them begin to question what's going on. What you need to do when you're talking a furnace, and particularly if you're talking a home performance project, you need to size for where you're going and not where you are, which is what that last slide was talking about. So if you are going to do a home performance project, the best time to do it is at equipment replacement time, because whatever the project you do, the odds of you having the wrong HVAC post-project are basically 100%.
All right, let's go to the next one. Here we go. So we're in the HVAC chapter now, 101, 6 things you should do. Load matching, filtration, dehumidification, fresh air, right place at the right time, and humidification. Let's look at them one at a time here. Let's start with unless you want to comment on the overall slide here, Nate.
No, ask questions.
All right, let's go. So you use the car here as a great example of the kind of things. Go back one if you would for a moment. The car has the load matching capabilities. It's got some filtration in it. Well, I guess there's some dehumidification too. It's got
air conditioner button.
Yeah, exactly.
You can run that anytime you want.
You can bring in outdoor air if you want. You can recycle the air on the inside of the car if you want. You've got it at the right place at the right time, because you can move your little dampers around and push air wherever you need it. You can put it on your feet. You can put it up on the defrost cycle. No humidification though in the car, right?
Yep, that's the only one that it doesn't do. So I chuckled in thinking about my wife's first car, which was this 1992 Corolla that had 130,000 miles on it. We bought for $500, and it had holes in it big enough to put a softball through, rust holes. Yet that little tiny car that was really cheap had a better HVAC system than 99% of U.S. homes.
Why? Why don't we have better HVAC systems in homes?
A number of reasons, but the free quote is definitely one big reason for it. And also not coming at problems looking to solve problems. So if you're looking for price first, you are going to make sacrifices that you don't realize that you're making.
Tell me about more on the free quote.
So free quotes, if you're going to get 3 quotes from different HVAC contractors, they have to limit how much time they spend designing the system for your house. So they're probably not going to run a really good load calculation. They're not going to do a blower door test, and air leakage is 30 to 70% of heating and cooling load. So if they don't know the blower door, their heat load calculation, even if they do one, is going to be wrong, like with almost 100% certainty. But because you're getting a free quote, and the odds are, I mean, at best, they're going to get a third of the jobs if you're getting 3 bids. They can't spend a ton of time on the upfront bid and specification and helping you understand what you need. They need to get to your house, give you a number, and move on to the next one. So it's far better to slow down and pay for help.
We get this, look at it, give an idea, okay, 1 ton, 2 ton, 3 ton, 4 ton, and then let's put it in. Why of the other reasons that a car has better control? So you've got variable speeds in cars. You've got, again, you've got a lot of more options with cars. Why don't we why had we not until recently seen that more often in residential? Is it more difficult to design these, to manufacture them? Is it that much more costly?
Well, it's considerably more expensive. I mean, just to use round numbers, a cheap furnace and a cheap air conditioner are about $3,000 a piece. When you start going in, installed, yeah. Okay. And somebody's going to crucify me for saying that, but just a ballpark number in your mind. That's where cheap equipment kind of lives.
Yeah, my brother used to throw them in for $3,000. I'll go along with that.
Yeah. So when you go to the more expensive equipment, one of the issues that I see with HVAC pricing is a lot of HVAC contractors will double or triple the cost of the equipment. So if it's a $1,000 piece of equipment, they'll sell it for $3,000. If it's a $2,000 piece of equipment, they'll sell it for $6,000. So that looks $3,000 more expensive when it's really only $1,000 more expensive. So if instead of loading their cost and their margin into the equipment, they loaded it into the labor side, it wouldn't look as expensive to use the better equipment. So, if you're looking at 3 different furnaces, one's $3,000, one's $5,000, and one's $7,500, you're probably not going to pick the $7,500 one, where if they priced it different, that might be $5,500. Mm-hmm. And they would sell more, they'd get a nicer piece of equipment installed that would provide better comfort. So that's one side of it. The other side is the better equipment is just more expensive. And typically people are just thinking, well, a furnace is a furnace, so whatever. And so that's a lot of what my book sets out to educate people on, is it's worth spending more money on better equipment if you want better comfort.
And I should say, most of the time, I think when my brother was installing, it was mostly just a furnace because we live in a very, more of a heating climate, although at times he'd put in both. And I would imagine it was more like $4,000 or $5,000 then when you put in a furnace and an air conditioner. All right, let's go to the next slide. And, the other thing with these undersized and oversized, let's Is this the next one you wanted to go to? No, here we go, right? Good MRT. Load. I think we covered that one, John.
Yep, I think that one works now.
All right. So right sizing the equipment. This is where I wanted to go. The way most people shop is like buying a maternity wear on the off chance that you may get pregnant and will actually fit one day. Explain what you mean by that.
Well, that's my buddy Griffin Hagel that said that. I mean, does Dottie have maternity wear in her closet right now?
I hope not.
Yeah, probably not. The curse is most people are buying furnaces and air conditioners worried about the worst day of the year, when they really should be thinking more about the meat of the year, which is much more moderate temperatures, which I think is the next slide, actually.
All right. Yeah, here we go.
Yep, there we go. So
this is Cleveland, but you can think of your own area. Yeah,
so wherever you live, the chart's going to look kind of like this. So this is a chart of outdoor temperatures by how many hours per year the temperature is in a certain bin. So they're 5-degree bins. So you can see there's a little tiny bit of time spent in the 0 to -5 Fahrenheit bin. But the majority of the time is going to be spent at moderate temperatures. So you can see that all the tall bars in this are between 30 degrees and 75 or 80 degrees. That's where we spend almost the entire year here. So wherever you live, the bars are going to move up or down a little bit, but it's going to be the same general idea. That is what we should really be paying attention to, because we need to be able to match how much heat or cool your HVAC is putting out to what the house needs, and not just be full throttle.
So if I'm matching it to what the house needs, and then, I still have to worry about those extremes on either side here, the 0-degree days, the 100-degree days. Will the system that you recommend they put in that's right sized for those other times of the year, will that help? Will it do the job on those days when it's down in the 0 or up over 100?
So the answer there is it depends, but yes. But the thing you want to think about is, what is the end of the world here? If when you are below what you're designing to, so design temperatures are the temperature at which you spend 1% of the year above or below. So it's about 90 hours a year above or below. And the hours are not in a row, usually. It'll be 4 hours one night, 4 hours another night, that sort of thing. But if you got a really cold day and it was -10, and your house slid from the 70-degree set point that you have it at to 68, is that the end of the world?
Gotcha.
That's what we're looking at.
Supplement that with something else too, I guess.
Yes. So use a space heater, or if you have a wood burner, there's lots of different options that you can do.
Whatever it may be. Yep. Right. Okay.
And on the hot side, you really aren't going to see high temperatures for very long during the day. So here our design temperature is 88 degrees. So 99% of the year we're below 88. When it goes above 88, it's from 2 in the afternoon to 5 in the afternoon. And then it comes back down. So it's this 3-hour peak that you just need to be able to get through. So even if the temperature in the house increases a hair, you might slide 1 or 2 degrees. By 8, 9, 10 o'clock, the house will begin to catch up again.
Let me ask this too. Residential HVAC systems it seems like it's kind of set, 1 ton, 2 ton, 3 ton. Are there any smaller units coming out that, because you've got these homes now that are designed to be very airtight, well insulated, they don't need as much. Are we seeing more mechanical systems that are designed for that type of load?
So yes and no. The yes is you're talking mini split heat pumps, which now dip as low as 6,000 BTUs. That's a half a ton, which we'll dig into what that means in a minute. But your standard sizes, there's a handful of 1-ton units out there. The Carrier's high-end line now has a 1-ton unit. But with mini splits and most of those units, they're the 6 things that we're trying to get an HVAC system to do. And a mini split heat pump can't do filtration very well. It can't do fresh air. It can't do humidification. and it can't distribute the heat very well. So right place, right time, it's not good at, because it's just coming out of one place. It's not coming through a duct system, unless of course you use a ducted mini split system to confuse the issue.
Okay.
But in general, the 2, 3, and 4 ton units for most houses in the country are going to be a pretty decent fit. And more importantly, if they already have a forced air system, you're not likely to move from a big central system to mini splits. It's better in most cases to just replace the system that's there with a better system.
So you might just go from a 3 ton to a 2 ton after you right size it.
Yes, or you go from a furnace to a heat pump, which we'll talk about in a little bit.
All right, let's go to the next slide. This is just showing those design. All right, so here we've got most of the time. I think this is a good illustration to kind of show what we were just talking about to some degree. You know, you got the spikes in the winter and then summer, and then most of the time you're kind of in between the two.
Exactly. So the way that I think about that is, it's like the job of your house is to go 70 all the time. So picture your car going 70 miles an hour all the time. Your house is trying to hold 70 degrees, give or take. So most of the year, it doesn't take a lot of heating or cooling. So you don't need 400 horsepower. So I talk about this as the Corvette in the basement, because your furnace is way too big. You really only need to be able to climb the hills. So that's the cold winter days and the hot summer days. You just need to be able to climb those without losing speed. You don't need to be able to accelerate up them. So you generally don't need 400 horsepower. You need more like 100 horsepower to get the job done.
All right, let's go to the next one. We're going to thank our sponsors. We'll be back with the second half of our show with Nate Adams, and we're talking about home performance and HVAC.
IAQ Radio would like to thank our association sponsors. The Indoor Air Quality Association, a nonprofit multidisciplinary organization dedicated to promoting the exchange of indoor environmental information through education and research. Visit them at iaqa.org. Gray Wolf Sensing Solutions, who use advanced sensor software technology and embedded computers to provide superior environmental test instrumentation. Visit them, wolfsense.com. IAQ marquee sponsors are John Don Products, where restoration and abatement contractors shop. Visit them at johndon.com. That's JONDON.com. Healthy Indoor Magazine, a free online digital magazine for industry professionals and consumers. Subscriptions are available at healthyindoors.com. Particles Plus, engineers and manufacturers feature rich particle counters, air quality monitoring, instrumentation, and vacuum pump technology. ParticlesPlus.com. Count on us.
And I want to mention our most recent addition to the sponsor lineup, the Restoration Industry Association, now an association sponsor. Always great to have them. We've done a lot of shows with Pete Consigli over the years, and they're on board now, and looking forward to doing more work with them. All right, let's get back to our PowerPoint here, and we've got the gas pedal, getting the gas pedal. You want to go back to the on-off switch, Nate, or you want to?
Yes, please.
Okay, here we go.
So the way to think about your furnace and air conditioner in your house, it's like having a Corvette, but you don't have a gas pedal. You only have an on-off switch. So it's either 100% power or no power at all. And so if you picture trying to drive down the highway going 70 miles an hour steady, if you have 400 horsepower or nothing, you hit the gas and it snaps your neck back, and then you let off and you go forward. And it's a very unsmooth way to drive. No one would ever drive that way, but that's how our HVAC works. And if you look at the chart, a temperature chart of a house, which you can do if you have an Ecobee thermostat, they actually chart that. Or if you use an indoor air quality monitor that tracks temperature and humidity, you can watch the house go up and down, up, down, up and down, up and down. And what you want is for it to move smoothly. And to do that, number one, you need less power because you don't need 400 horsepower to do the job. And number two, you want a gas pedal. So you want to be able to give it partial throttle and not have it be all the way down or nothing. So,
all right. So how available are these variable speed units nowadays, and what's the cost on it?
Well, they're very available and they do cost more. But again, I'd love to see more HVAC contractors not mark up the equipment too much, so that they look more attractive. From seeing some quotes here locally for carrier equipment, the difference between a two-stage, so there's two-stage equipment, which is basically like 70% of full power and 100% of full power, and modulating equipment is a couple of $100 for the furnace. So it's almost nothing.
Not much.
But it's a decent-sized step between the one-stage and the two-stage.
Okay.
So
go to the next slide here, John. All right, that's the two-stage, three-stage, and what you mentioned the two-stage. You want to touch base on the three-stage?
The three-stage that's kind of an older piece of equipment. That's the original modulating furnaces. They weren't truly modulating; they just had 3 stages instead of 2. And if you flip to the next one,
there we go. Now we have the modulating.
Yep. So think of this like the knob in your car, where you can turn it up to a little bit of heat or a lot of bit of heat, or vice versa on cooling. So most modulating furnaces vary between 40% of full capacity and 100% of full capacity. The very best stuff dips all the way down to 25%. So now you have a really nice throttle. And some of these will be doing this in 1% increments. Some of them have 4, 5, 6 stages to get there. But regardless, the more stages you can get, the more you can match how much heating or cooling your house needs more of the year. And that improves mean radiant temperature because you're constantly washing the surfaces with slightly warmed or slightly cooled air, and the house becomes more comfortable.
Which improves comfort, but it also helps with your energy. So
considerably, yes.
Dual benefit from that. All right, let's go to the next. So we don't need the Corvette. I think we did that. Let's go to we don't need a Corvette, air leakage. All right, tell us a little bit about this slide.
So this is helpful just for some definition. So 1 BTU is a British thermal unit, and that is how much heat is contained or released by burning a match from head to tail. So it includes burning your finger. And then 1 ton, which is how heat pumps and air conditioners are rated, that comes from just an old school thing. We used to cool using big blocks of ice. So if you put 1 ton or 12,000 BTUs of heat on a ton of ice for 24 hours, you will completely melt that ton of ice. So that's why 1 ton is 12,000 BTUs.
I've never seen it explained that way, but I like it. All right. Air leakage is 30 to 70% of our heating and cooling needs. So obviously that's why you're so big on air sealing.
Yep. Well, or even just measuring. You have to measure. If you want a good load calculation, you need a blower door. You can't guess at that. I can't tell you how often I've walked up to a house, thought one thing. I play a game with myself every time. I look at the client's energy bills, and I interview them, and I make a guess on the blower door. And my goal is to be within 500 points of what reality is. And sometimes houses surprise the heck out of me. So unless you test, you do not know. And you will buy the wrong piece of equipment, and replacing that is very expensive.
All right, let's look at the next one here, Nate. You've got a typical HVAC equipment sizes in BTUs per hour here.
Yes. So furnaces start at 40,000 BTUs, and they're generally 20,000 BTU increments. So smallest furnace you can buy is 40,000. A fairly typical one is 60,000. 80,000 is the one I probably see the most, and it is wrong in every single house by a long shot that I see it in. So there's lots and lots of comfort problems that come from that size furnace in normal sized houses. So say 2,000 square feet or less. And then the larger furnaces you'll see are 100,000 and 120,000 BTUs. On the other hand, the typical heat pump and air conditioner sizes you're going to see are 2, 3, and 4 ton. So that's 24,000, 36,000, and 48,000 BTUs. The largest one you'll see is a 5 ton residentially. So that's 60,000 BTUs, which happens to be the size of a smallish furnace. So in general, heat pumps and air conditioners are a lot smaller than furnaces are.
Okay, next.
And this is helping people understand what it takes to heat or cool. So we find with home performance projects that we can get most 2,000 square foot homes here in Cleveland under 36,000 BTUs for heating, so that's a 3-ton, and under 24,000 BTUs for cooling. So the smallest furnace is 40,000 BTUs, and we're getting most houses below that. Is that the right or the wrong piece of equipment then?
Now, when you say you're getting, that's after you do your blower door and your air sealing and your insulating.
Yes.
Okay, so you basically need the smallest furnace out there pretty much after you've done whatever you've done on your 2,000 square foot home.
Correct, but the curse of 40,000 BTU furnaces is there. I don't know that there's any modulating ones that are that small. The smallest common modulating one is a 60,000. So you're still in trouble on that. So furnaces are typically not a good option for high performance homes, is what it ends up being.
Okay.
So if you look at these bars, I've got the typical sizes of heat pumps and air conditioners stacked below the typical sizes of furnaces. And if we know that heating and cooling loads are in the 3-ton range, 36,000 BTUs, that ends up leading you to the conclusion that heat pumps are oftentimes a better fit for tighter homes, even in a cold climate. Like there's limits to how cold of a climate you can go to, but this is climate zone 5. And in the contiguous US, there's climate zone 1 through 7, and then Alaska's up there with their own in 8. It's amazing how well you can make these work. And we've now pulled 8 gas meters off of client homes and converted them to being heated with heat pumps.
Interesting. All right, let's go to the next one. So how much heat cool is needed within a year when the weather is within 40 to 80 degrees? So this is that main, the area where we're at most of the time.
Yes. So in the calculations that I ran for Cleveland, so it'll vary where you live, but this gives you an idea. 10,000 BTUs, which is less than a ton, so that's not very much output. That is enough to heat or cool your house about 40% of the year. So 38.9 to be exact with the numbers I came up with. So it doesn't take very much heat or cool to heat or cool your house most of the year.
Now let me ask this. Is this the typical home or a home that's already been insulated?
This is one that's been upgraded, but the numbers are going to be similar. So say instead of 10,000, it's 20,000 for a house.
Gotcha.
You're still talking way smaller than what a furnace is usually going to put out.
Okay. All right, let's go to the next one. So how much heat or cooling is needed within a year when the weather's within 20 and 90 degrees?
So that will cover like 20,000 BTUs on a house that has a 36,000 BTU requirement on a very cold day. That 20,000 BTUs is enough to heat that house 95% of the year, heat or cool. So what this is trying to make the point of is that if you're going to load match what the house needs, you really need smaller equipment, or you need modulating equipment so that you can improve the mean radiant temperature, all the average surface temperatures in your house, so that it's more comfortable.
All right, next. Load matching with various HVAC equipment here. So let's talk briefly about this one here, Nate.
So this is comparing different types of HVAC in that house that I was talking about. So 36,000 heating, 24,000 cooling. So if you have an 80,000 BTU furnace, that is going to match what you need heating-wise in your house 0% of the year. For that to be required in this house, it's probably going to be talking 40 or 50 below. If we're getting that cold in Cleveland, we're probably going to have other worries.
Yeah.
That's pretty intense. We have seen 20 below, but it's 1 or 2 hours we saw it for. So then say you right size it and you use a 3-ton single stage heat pump. And I'm oversimplifying here too. I should mention heat pumps as it gets colder lose output. So you have to be paying attention to that. But let's just say, for argument's sake, when it's 6 degrees out, your 3-ton heat pump is putting out 3 tons. That means it is right sized for your house 1% of the year. 90 hours a year, that will be the right piece of equipment. The rest of the time, it won't be able to match what the house needs. Now, if you move to a 3-ton, 2-stage piece of equipment, now you're talking about a third of the year you can match. And then if you move to a really nice piece of equipment, so a 3-ton, fully modulating all the way down to 25%, you can match heating or cooling needs about half the year. The other half is not as important then, because you're talking, say, 50 to 75 degrees, when as long as it's bumping along a little bit. It's 400 horsepower is too much, but if you only have 40 horsepower you can throw at it, but you only need 20, it's still not mismatched that badly, so mean radiance is still going to be okay.
All right.
And then the last one is, if you go aggressive and you size for cooling rather than heating, which I don't always strongly recommend, but this is an option, that will let you match what the house needs heating or cooling wise about 2/3 of the year.
Okay, next. All right, so don't heat pumps cost more? Well, yeah, I think. Maybe I'm wrong.
So these are two very similar client homes. The one on the left has a furnace. The one on the right has a heat pump. I really like these houses because they're so stinking comparable. They're built within 3 years of each other, 1915 versus 1918. Their square footage is almost identical, right around 1750. They both have single male occupants. We did the same basic project where we spray foamed the roof deck in a walk-up attic. And their final air leakage numbers came in really close. So we're under 2,000 blower doors for both of them. And I didn't put it on here, but their load calculations are very similar too. One's 57,000, the other's 54. And this actually will help indicate how oversized they are, because with the heat pump house with a 54,000 BTU heat load calculation, we're doing it with a 3-ton heat pump, and it used almost no resistance this past winter. So it's possible. All right, so go ahead. What was that, Joe?
The one on the right, the built in 1918?
Yes, that's what I call the 1918 House of the Future on EnergySmartOhio.com. You can go read a lot about that house.
Yeah, you've got, by the way, some great case studies on the website. Just excellent stuff, and really walks you through it. So let's talk about this next slide here. This is the cost to operate. Pretty darn close.
Yes. So the furnace house, now this is 2015, 2016 winter, was $1,813.62. This is gas and electric, because it's kind of hard to break them out. So I'm looking at total operating cost. Meanwhile, the heat pump house was $1,730 even. So it was about $85 less expensive for the year. Now, I'm sorry to report that with the cold snap this year, the heat pump house was more expensive to operate than the furnace house by $60.32 for the year. Think I'm going to get sued?
Nah, I think you'll be all right. But now, what about the cost of the equipment to start with?
So that's a great question. So if you're talking inexpensive equipment, of course, it's not going to be comparable. But in general, a good furnace with a decent heat pump on top, which would be a hybrid system, versus a good heat pump are going to be comparable. So with these two examples, the furnace house was about $11,000 equipment replacement, and actually I hate that piece of equipment. It was 6 months before I got there. There's so many things wrong about it. It's such a lousy install. It drives me crazy. The heat pump house, that heat pump was about $13,000. Okay. So yes, there's a cost difference, but the furnace house still has some comfort issues because the equipment's too large. Meanwhile, John's house, the heat pump house on the right, is one of the most comfortable homes I've ever been in, ever, of any age.
Let's go to the next one. Load matching with various HVAC. Okay, this is...
That was just repeating the points.
Okay, let's go to here. Ironically, more efficient AC. I like this one. Ironically, more efficient ACs stink at dehumidification because they're better at removing heat than humidity. Tell us a little bit about this. This is very interesting.
Sure. So there's two kinds of heat that air conditioners are removing. There's latent heat, which is humidity, and there's sensible heat, which is temperature. When you get to more efficient equipment, you're not truly getting more efficient equipment, you're sliding the difference between them. So really efficient equipment will remove 10% humidity or latent heat and 90% sensible. The problem is in our climate, we need a lot of dehumidification. So out west, this is great because they don't need dehumidification. But any place, if you're in a green grass climate, if the grass in where you live stays green without watering it, that is a climate that needs dehumidification. I see John Semmelhack hopping in there and saying true. As you get to the more efficient equipment, they do more heat removal, but not moisture removal. And the problem is if you put in an oversized piece of equipment, the dehumidification only begins 10 or 15 minutes into the cycle. So if it's oversized, it never runs long enough to get into dehumidification, which it sucks at anyway. I went to visit a friend of mine, an HVAC installer down in North Carolina, and we went to visit one of his clients. The guy had just had oversized equipment put in that was this efficient stuff, and he had mold blooms throughout his house because the air conditioners were no longer dehumidifying like his old inefficient ones were. So paying attention to dehumidification is critical, and this is another reason to be sure that you right size, and it's another reason still to use modulating equipment because it will actually slow the fan speed down, which makes the coil inside colder, and the colder coil will remove more humidity. Where if you have single stage equipment, it is what it is. It just does its job.
Are there times when you add separate dehumidification on your projects?
Oh, absolutely. Dehumidification in spring and fall is really problematic because your air conditioner doesn't need to run. It's not cold enough or not warm enough to turn the AC on. So having separate dehumidification capability for air quality and home health is critical. The more that I'm learning from watching the air quality monitors that we have in a lot of our client homes, the more it's becoming really apparent that humidity control is the key to a healthy home.
Yep, absolutely. Let's go to the next one. So this is just a couple of questions that I had, and I think I got most of these. How often are HVAC systems under or oversized? Oversized a lot. Undersized seems like that would be a little less common, if at all.
Yeah, it's pretty rare. There's one fellow in town here, so shout out to Stuart at Central Heating and Air in Cleveland. He is big on just jumping down one size, and so he may potentially end up with an undersize, but he gives a guarantee, if this won't heat your house on a cold day, I'll come in and change it out for free.
Okay, and we asked about studies. We're going to look into that because you didn't know of any off the top of your head. Why aren't more system size? We talked a little bit about that. We talked a little bit about the smaller units. Let's go to the next one. All right, Nate, I think we didn't think we would do that. We got through them all, huh?
We made it. Yeah. Well, there's a few after this. The thing that I want to add, we actually have time for. I wasn't sure if we would or not.
Let's go to it. Yeah, electrifying everything. This is like your passion here, right?
Yes.
All right. Tell me why.
So this is the argument for electrify everything. So this is making everything in our lives run on electricity. So Joe, can we agree that running our houses and cars requires energy?
Yes.
Okay, that's fair. Unless you want to live in a cave without a fire. I mean, we got nothing.
Right.
Knock back to even before the Stone Age, because they at least figured out fire. So if we're going to use energy, we really have two choices. We have fossil fuel energy where you have to burn something, and you have renewable energy where you don't have to burn something. So those are our two options for using energy. If we want to run on renewable energy, that basically means we need to run on electricity because we're only good at making renewable electricity. We can split water into hydrogen, but you lose a lot of stuff. Like there's a bunch of things there, but the key thing is electricity is what we need to make everything run on if we want to achieve true energy independence, and clean up the environments because we won't be burning things anymore. So whatever your reason is to come at it. But if we can electrify everything in our lives, we can make it run on renewable energy. And so that's a second argument for heat pumps, which you already know that we like, and we do kind of crazy things. In fact, on the HVAC school group on Facebook, I'm known as Mr. Heat Pump, because I'm out there just posting data and shaking things up. But the more we can electrify, the better. Sorry, go ahead.
I'm guessing the gas companies don't really like you too much.
They don't know me yet, but soon enough, yes, I'm probably going to have a target on my back.
I hope you get that big, buddy.
But if you want to learn more about that, my YouTube channel, which is Nate the House Whisperer, I've got a couple of videos talking about how to go about this, because it's now actually better. So heat pumps provide better comfort. There's now induction cooktops rather than gas ranges, because I've always been a cook on gas kind of person, but I like induction better. And it's also far healthier because, number one, you don't have your face in an exhaust pipe, which is what you do when you're cooking on gas. And number two, if you use a range hood, the gases are coming off the food that you're cooking more slowly, so they're more likely to get caught by the range hood and taken outside with induction than they are versus gas. Then we have electric cars. We have Mr. Elon Musk making really killer vehicles that are cool now instead of being glorified golf carts. So there's all of these options now where electrification actually makes our lives better, and we can make our lives run on renewable energy.
What are we going to do with all that fracking gas?
Well, I kind of hope it stays in the ground.
All right.
That's a math thing. Because one important math point to make here is we saw it's just looking at two houses. My point is not to say in looking at those two houses, that's what's going to happen every time. It's just to show that it's possible. Okay. But if we are looking at two homes when we have a heat pump with moderately priced electricity at 13 cents a kilowatt hour versus 30 and 40-year lows for natural gas, and we can make those comparable in operation cost, what happens if we start exporting more natural gas, which we're in the process of right now, and natural gas prices go up? What if we get a political regime that comes in and decides that keep it in the ground is what we're going to do, and now all those frack wells get capped? Is it going to happen? I don't know, but it might. There's risk of energy costs going up for natural gas, where electricity, because it's making it with sun and solar and wind, is now the least expensive way. The odds are the cost of electricity is going to go down over time, not up.
Well, maybe we'll move that gas over to producing electricity, like that's been happening anyway.
Yeah.
They're using
the backup plants,
versus coal for electric production. So I think it's an interesting concept. Anything further here on this? We got another slide. There we go. Fossil fuel energy or renewable energy.
That's what we just clicked through.
That's kind of what we were just talking about. Nate, always a pleasure. I really enjoy talking to you, and put the Home Comfort book up there. It's a great thing. The next time we talk, we're going to talk a little bit more about insulation, because I think insulation is another topic that people get kind of confused on. I know you home performance guys are very familiar with insulation and very knowledgeable about it, but I don't know how many IAQ people are as familiar with insulation and the different issues, the pros and the cons of insulation. But I tell you, I really enjoyed speaking more about HVAC in more detail with you here today. Is there anything you'd like to add before we go?
I think that's it.
I'm shocked. I can't believe
last slide there. We made it. Yeah, so 12:59. Good job, man.
Excellent. Here's some great information on the web, free chapters and blogs of the Home Comfort book. So you can either buy it for, what is it, $17.95? That's pretty reasonable.
But the digital's $15.99 and the print is $36.99 on Amazon.
Not bad. You can get those at Nate the House Whisperer. Go to his YouTube channel, Nate the House Whisperer. He's got project case studies on Energy Smart Ohio. That's where I was looking at some of those case studies. Excellent stuff. If you got a little, maybe a little behind on following what we were talking about today, go right in and look at the case studies he's done, especially if you're looking at the air sealing and the insulation part. I think and also just evaluating using the thermal imaging and blower door testing. I think you do a great job of laying that all out real nice. A lot of graphics on Energy Smart Ohio, and there's Nate's email. So this is Radio Joe Hughes saying thanks to this week's guest, Nate Adams, for part 2. We'll be back with part 3, probably about another month, Nate. Let this sink in. And it's always great to have you.
Likewise, Joe. Thanks again.
All right. And also want to say thanks to my co-host, the Z-Man, Cliff Zlotnick. He'll be writing a blog on this particular episode when he gets back. My engineer at the controls, John. You got to have faith, and most importantly, our growing group of loyal listeners and our advertisers and sponsors. We got another one coming on next week. I won't tell you now who it is yet, but that's coming along very nicely. We'll be back next Friday. By the way, we've got Bob Krell joining us next week. Bob is Healthy Indoors Magazine, and we're going to talk a little bit about the upcoming Maine Indoor Air Quality Council conference. Bob's going to actually be doing some live streaming of that particular conference. So look forward to talking to Bob, and we're going to try and get one of the speakers from that conference to join him. Right now, I'm trying to get a builder on who does some really interesting stuff, but I haven't quite nailed that down, but we'll send that out in next week's emails. Thanks for joining us this week, and please come back next Friday for the next episode of IAQ Radio.
For IAQ Radio, I'm Spike Reel saying thanks for listening.